Hello and welcome to another Monday Musings. I'm here with Don Monroe. I'm Mariah, and we're talking about brushes.
Yes, we're going to brush up on brushes.
So, first question.
Yes.
How do you break a brush? No, not like that.
Oh, break a brush.
Yes.
It's a term I refer to as breaking a brush. When you receive brand new brush, they treat them so they don't ruin the hairs. And they're very hard. It's very stiff. So you're thinking, what's wrong with the brush? Well, it's a sizing that they put in it. And a lot of people, what they do is they just grab the brush and they just break it.
Yeah, no, bad idea.
Yeah, that breaks hairs. Hairs cost money. Artists don't have a lot. So this is a proper way to quote unquote break a brush. Now this is a very high quality brush.
And what brush is it?
This is a Rosemary & Co. brush from England. Now you're probably gasping and holding your chest at this point. Where does this guy get the money to buy paintbrushes from England? Well, believe it or not, you can order brushes from England cheaper than you can buy them through the store. And the quality is,
Chef's kiss.
oh yes. They are so beautiful, luscious, delicious.
Okay, back to breaking a brush.
Sorry, I need to tell after that one.
Insert Ferris Bueller gif here.
So you take your brush, insert it into water. Now, they're an oil painting brush. Why put it in water? Because the sizing they use is water-based. And what you're going to do is just let it soak in the water for a little bit and gently push down on it. And then slowly but surely the sizing will dissolve. And then by doing this, you're also washing the sizing out. So now we have, quote unquote, broke the brush. Or desized it. And as you can see, it's perfectly fine. Compared to his little brother that's
Still stiff.
still stiff. This one's lively, this one's dead. Or not alive yet. And no stiffy jokes. So that is the term breaking the brush. And as you can see, that the hairs look considerably different all of a sudden. The one that I broke, the fibers have flared out and are seeking their own. So, that is breaking the brush. Now, they are not the only brush in the world, and you don't have to freak out. There are many other manufacturers of paintbrushes. This is a Pro Stroke, Eucrit, Da Vinci, Princeton. All perfectly acceptable brushes. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with them whatsoever. But as you get deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole, or going the squirrel up the tree, is you're going to hear more and more specifically about certain types of brushes. Every artist has their favorite. And I've got, obviously, mine. As you can see, I have a plethora, an overabundance of brushes. You can start out with a dozen, less than a dozen brushes. And it's just fine. You can paint with those. Then you're going to ask, why do you need so many brushes? This is where the secret comes in. Oil painting is different than watercolors. Because in oil painting, you're going to have one brush for one shade, in other words, one value So this would be a light value. This brush would be used for a dark value. You don't use one brush for both. So you would use one brush for doing your lighter values as in up in the face. A dark value for over in the hair, the shadows, is where that would come in. And you may have up to 4 different brushes within the same color range. Within your reds and oranges and your flesh tones. You could have 4 brushes in your hand at the same time, all doing the same thing. And the reason why is you don't want to contaminate dark with light, and then you wind up with mud. Your paintings become ugly, they don't have any life to them, they don't have any pop and spring, and they're just dead. That's the secret. Segregate your brushes. It's a good thing. Types of hairs. Hog bristle is a pretty standard. I call them scrub brushes. You use them to scrub in your paint when you're first starting out. It's literally made with hog hair. Comes from pigs. The bad thing with hog hair, it's a great brush. It's very stiff for painting, but they break. They wear out very quickly. And they will leave hairs in your painting. That's fine. As you're painting, you see a hair, go backwards. You go backwards, it'll pick the hair up. You can take it, then pick it off or flick it off, preferably on your neighbor.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Teacher said to share.
Then you come over here and you're going to have, this is an Eclipse, which is a synthetic brush. It is a badger substitute. I love badgers. Oh, they're a wonderful little thing. But there is one that is far superior and more lovely than all the rest. The little weasel. Pure sable. It's a red sable. It is a member of the mink family. They're soft, they're luscious and delicious. You use this for your final painting, for putting in your details, your highlights, little spark, little love. They're wonderful. I highly recommend, but they cost a lot of money.
A very shiny penny.
Yes, and then you go into Kolinsky sable. You better get a loan on your neighbor's house.
Or sell your firstborn, whichever one comes first.
I keep trying to give my firstborn away.
Hi.
But there are many different types of hairs. Synthetics is where a lot of brush manufacturers are going. They're recommending synthetics. I have mixed opinions. Some are good. Some I don't care for. Some people think they're the cat's meow.
So let me cut in a little here. This brush is green.
Yes, it is.
It's an unused green brush.
And this one is more on the red side.
Yes. Is there reason?
Yes, there is a story behind it. And you'll have to contact Rosemary & Co. to find out. Actually, this is called an evergreen filbert. It is a brush that they designed specifically, from what I understand, for Christmas. So they dyed them green. Then they found out the dye that they used changed the hair, or the fibers, the synthetic fibers, and made them a little more springy. And people absolutely loved them. So they kept it. And they're called evergreens. This one's called a Shiraz. If you contact Rosemary & Co., tell them you want a catalog, you won't regret it. They'll send you one. One more caveat about Rosemary & Co. If you decide to go that route and you're patient, pay extra for the shipping. Don't get mail shipping. Don't be cheap on the shipping. Quote, shipping. You'll wait over a month to get your brushes if you get it by mail. You go FedEx, you'll get it within days. Don't be cheap on your shipping.
We know this from experience.
Very much so.
So,
Nothing
yes.
worse than a whiny artist.
Whiny and hungry. I can there. Topped it. Haha. Okay, so now cleaning your
cleaning.
brushes.
We all must clean up our act once in a while.
Unfortunately.
There is the old school method. Good old turpentine. Pine tree juice.
Smells amazing, not that great.
Yeah, it's the worst thing for you to breathe. Don't believe what other people say. It's not good stuff. It's great for the first day, then after that you're going to pay for the rest of your life. Kind of like going out and spending a late night with someone that you shouldn't be. So, cleaning a brush. Don't use turpentine. There are other methods. There are other alternatives to turpentine. There's many different solvents. Some people have their own preference. I am kind of a Gamsol fanatic. A gambling fanatic, if you will. Actually, this is Gamware. This is not Gamsol. Don't I look like a buffoon? This is Gamsol. It is a solvent. From what I understand, it was made for the makeup industry. It is very good. It is pretty much odorless mineral spirits, but it still evaporates within the air. But it does it at a so much lower rate, and what they refer to as parts per million. This has the lowest parts per million than turpentine. Turpentine will evaporate instantly. This stuff will take quite a while.
So what is parts per million? Is that just different particles?
It's the particulates in the air.
Okay. Okay.
It's the aromatics. Just because you can't smell it doesn't mean it's not evaporating.
Gotcha.
So, back to cleaning.
Yes.
Once you get paint on your brush and you want to get it off, there are other alternatives besides solvents. You can actually be completely solvent free. This is safflower oil. It's just a basic oil medium. It's a very slow drying oil. So as you're painting, you wipe your brush off with a good old towel. Just wipe it off. Put it in your safflower oil, get a little bit on there. Go onto a firm surface, a glass plate or whatever. Dab it, work it a little bit, and then you'll see all the pigments, all the paint come out of it.
Okay.
And then you wipe it off. So from there, you've got one of two choices. If you are just a run-of-the-mill everyday artist, then you would take your brush and go into your Gamsol and swish it around, clean it, make sure no more pigment comes out of the brush as you're cleaning. And that's the secret. Make sure no more pigment comes out. And then your brush will be clean. Wipe it dry. Lay it flat to dry, preferably hang it up this way. And that keeps the solvent out of the furrows. It'll keep the paint from running back into the furrows if there's any left in it. But if you are solvent sensitive, you're not left out. There is a little stuff. It's called Masters Brush Cleaner. It is put out by, I believe, General Pencil Company. A very good company. It is called Masters. Now what makes it so special is I have literally gone to yard sales and asked people for their old artist brushes. And it's amazing what you get.
Boy, is it amazing.
They come out with these brushes that they painted with and left them sit for a year, and they're hard as a rock, and you can tell what colors they were using because it's nothing but a solid stick of paint. What I do is I stick it in the Gamsol, let it soak for a while, loosen it up a little bit, wipe it off. Then I will take the brush, thoroughly wet it, stick it in the Masters, work it in really, really well. You want to get a good lather going. just like an old-fashioned shaving cup. Just keep working it. And as you keep working it, you'll notice that it's changing color. That's actually the paint coming out of the ferrule, out of the brushes themselves. Even when you think your brush is clean, it is not. So you can see how much came out of there in that little bit. So give it a quick little swish, get some more soap on it, load it up really good, a little more water, work it in there, and you can see even more is coming out. Now everybody's going to say, but Mr. Artiste, what about the paint down in the ferrule? There's your $1,000,000 question. See how much more came out of that? Wipe the brush off. You can see it's quite a bit lighter. But if you look, you can see the paint right down there in the ferrule. So this is how you deal with it. And most people don't understand this part. Load it back up. Get it good and wet. Work it in there so it's pretty juicy. Grab the hairs at the very tip. Hold firmly and just wiggle it back and forth. Just do the hula. Just back and forth, around and around. And then pretty soon, what happens by doing this is that paint eventually starts working. The bristles start moving around inside the ferrule, and that paint comes working right back out, and the soap goes in, and it forces its way up. But you've got to hold it very tightly, and you don't want to overdo it. Just move it around, and as you can see, a lot of pigment came out. It's not perfect yet. You do that 2 or 3 times and it will be completely cleaned out. And it'll be basically a brand new brush. So, you're going to have a brush that the hairs are literally going in 10 million different directions. Again, masters. You're going to use less water, just enough to dampen it. You take it and you stroke very gently the hairs in all directions, getting them all pointing in the same direction. As you keep doing this, it is actually, you're taking some of the moisture out, it's drying out, and you're shaping the bristles. Once you get it to shape, you let it sit for a second. If you have all the hairs behaving themselves like the little boys and girls, leave it. Let it dry. With natural hair, you can leave it alone, it'll be fine. Synthetic hair, they have a tendency to have a mind of their own, and they literally go everywhere. And yes, they can be restored. You do a similar thing, is you get the masters on them, stroke them down, get them flat and behaving where you want them, let it dry, take a hair dryer and warm it. If it's not too hot for your skin, it won't be too hot for the brush. And just as it gets warmed up, keep stroking it in the direction you want it to go and pull. And those hairs will literally form back to where they should. Just like hair drying your own hair. It is the most effective way I found of dealing with that, with synthetic hairs. With natural hair, they're pretty well behaved and they'll do what you tell them to do. Now, you do get to a point where your brushes are going to say,
I've had enough.
I've had enough. Then they wind up looking like these poor, defenseless little refugees. All haggard and worn out. They're tired.
I want to go home.
They want to go home. Don't throw them away. Believe it or not, you can still use them. There are little tips and tricks to remake the brush all over again. So you can actually make new brushes out of these. or just store them around for still lifes or whatever. And then sometimes you just need a brush you can't buy. You just need an ugly wore out brush and you can't find one because you take care of your brushes. So you go buy the cheapest brush you can find in the store, take a pair of scissors, give it to a little kid and say, have fun, and give it a haircut. You just chop it up. Next thing you know, you got the perfect little brush to make little grass flicks, little hairs, random hair marks. So everything does have a use.
It just depends on how you use it.
It's like these brushes I showed earlier. I hated them. I was going to throw them away because they could not form an edge and hold it. But I found out because they're so misbehaved, they're the perfect brush for blending, for getting soft effects. So
that
everything
would be,
has a use.
That would be perfect for like facial features, blending in different colorings and stuff
You
like
put
that.
your paint down, you go back over it and blend it in.
Perfect. Awesome. So is that everything that we need to know today about brush etiquette?
With
Probably
brushes, you're going to have a huge variety. You want some very tiny brushes for details. Then you want your biggies with attitude for doing large laying in of color, large fields. So you're going to wind up having a variety. I showed you one way of restoring brushes. There are other ways. There's Murphy's oil soap, works well if you don't want to buy Masters. You can get it at the grocery store if you're not near an art supply. The only disadvantage with Murphy's oil soap is you can't form the hairs the way you want them.
Okay, so Masters would be the best thing to use for brushes. Yes. Okay.
Dawn dishwashing liquid works well for pulling the oils out, but the problem is it's pulling all the oils out.
Strips it.
Yes, and just like if you go swimming in a chlorinated pool, does the same thing to your hair. It strips it. You have no oils left in it and it starts breaking. You start losing them.
So if that happens, is there a way to put oils back in the brush?
You can just dip it in a little bit of your safflower oil, linseed oil, and then just carefully clean them out. Just don't let the oil dry completely in the brush.
Okay, so that would be, then you would go back in with proper methods and then clean it properly. Okay, perfect. Awesome. I think that is it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you never miss an upload. And we'll catch you next week on a Monday Musings. Bye.
See ya.